And this is Real Estate Underground.
Greetings and salutations, Real Estate Undergrounders. It's your old friend Ed Matthews again with the Real Estate Underground podcast. Today's show is really interesting because this is an asset class that I have been fascinated by, and for a lot of different reasons, which we'll get into. But I've been fortunate enough to talk my new friend Dylan Stewart of Relational Capital to join us on the show today to tell us anything and everything about mobile home parks and the asset class. So Dylan, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for your time today. And I can't wait. I can't wait to find out more about this. This is cool.
Yeah, me as well, Ed. Excited to be with you and your listeners and kind of get under the hood of this business.
So let's talk about you first. In terms of your background and experience, I know you've been a real estate investor for quite some time through several different asset classes, if I'm not mistaken. And so, how did you get to this point, and what really drew you into the mobile home park as a target class?
Yeah, great question. So just to start out with where I'm at now, and we can kind of rewind. So
Sure.
I'm at the time of this recording, I'm 23 years old, based out of Tacoma, Washington, and my team and I, we own 500 plus mobile home and RV lots across 3 different states: Texas,
Wow, that's awesome.
Ohio, and Minnesota. And really just kind of in a consolidation phase, trying to, keep our portfolio growing within 3 to 4 hours of Dallas, Fort Worth. And so the long, I've been full-time in real estate since directly out of high school, throughout high school. And prior was always into some sort of business or entrepreneurship, and being younger and having social media, you see people always marketing a course or a program. Sure. And so I've done and tried door-to-door sales, network marketing, some online coaching. And my main bread and butter throughout high school was a landscaping business. And so I was just running it myself out of my truck. And right before I graduated high school in 2017, there was a Tony Robbins event here local in my town, and went to that event. They upsold a real estate course. And so went to their 3-day workshop. And right at the beginning, they're like, hey, we're going to upsell you by the end of this weekend on a $20,000, $30,000, and $40,000 course. But in the next 3 days, we're going to teach you as much as possible. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And so by the end of that weekend, I didn't have any money, right? I was 17 years old by the time I graduated, and, had a little bit saved up, but found someone to partner with, went forward with the course. And, after the end of that summer, I started the course because that was my plan. And after a month of doing that, it was outdated information. It wasn't applicable in 2017 in a smoking hot Seattle real estate market.
Yep.
So of course I went to YouTube University and, started learning from podcasts and stuff like that. And after a month of doing that, I got my first deal. And that was a joint venture with another investor doing a wholesale deal, single family here in Washington. And then for the next probably just about a year was kind of on my own doing wholesale deals in Washington. My prior partner and I met doing at a real estate networking event. And then him and I partnered up and started doing some out-of-state investing 2018, 2019 in St. Louis. And so we built up a full single family team of acquisitions, dispositions, boots on ground. We were doing, did 30, 40 plus deals in that following year, all remote with wholesaling.
Good for you.
Some rent to owns. We did owner financing. And then the end of 2019, it was just God's good timing. We were selling a single family deal, and this guy responded to our text blast, said, I'm not buying, but I have a small mobile home park we'd sell you. And we said, cool. We knew we wanted to get in some multifamily asset class. And so we got together some money with friends and family, bought that small park outside of St. Louis. And it was 22 lots total. And so by the beginning of 2020, we decided to take a step back from the transactional business of single family and said, let's just focus on this small mobile home park here. Mm-hmm. We weren't making any money, we were making barely any cash flow, but we were learning the fundamentals of out-of-state management, operations, construction. And so we did that for a full year. In the beginning of 21, we decided to ramp it up. And so I said we bought our first official park, which was a 42 space park outside of Toledo, Ohio in March of 21. And from there to the following 12 months, we went from 22 lots to over 500. Wow. At that time, it was across 4 different states, and ranging from 22 lots to 120 lot park. And then it was the middle of 2022. There was just no longer alignment in values and vision with my partner, and so I bought him out of 7 of the 9 parks that we had at that time. And then since then, I bought 2 other parks in Texas, and in the process of selling off some other parks out of state and just consolidating all of our efforts and really being single-minded and focused on our market, on our skill set, And, I own 2 RV parks in addition to the mobile home parks. And so just, really continuing to learn. There's been so many bumps and bruises. It all sounds like a highlight reel when you hear that, but a lot of bumps and bruises and learning lessons and mistakes that we can definitely dive into. Yeah.
We'll absolutely get into those. Wow. What a ride. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's phenomenal. So, so relational capital, tell me about that.
Yeah. For me, I love people, right? I say 3 things. I love Jesus, I love people, and I love real estate. And, when I look at relational capital, everything is based on relationships, right? How can I deposit into a relationship so that when I need to withdraw, that's already established, whether if that's helping someone out with their mindset, with leadership, with their relationships or marriage, their faith, or their business. And so relational capital is exactly that. And that's fortunately was able to, adopt that company. And it's about relationships, building relationships with people and seeing how we can be of value, whether if that's us doing a joint venture, if that's, someone passively partnering into our deals or many different ways. And so, we run a very lean and mean team. I say we, because I don't like to say I, but I'm the sole owner of the company.
That's okay.
Right. And so really our core focus right now run very lean and mean. I have an operations manager in Dallas, and, he oversees all 8 of our parks right now. Okay. And he runs with an assistant operations manager. And that's really it on the operations side. And then myself overseeing them. And then I have a transaction kind of wholesale manager to where she handles any of our acquisitions. And then if we ever wholesale a property or partner with someone on a joint venture, the disposition of those as well. And I've just been very fortunate. I'm 23, and most of my team, my other team members have always been in their 50s or 60s. They've had, decades of experience in the industry. And so really just, yeah. Well, I think the reason I share that is when you have a vision big enough and you have the energy, the excitement, the integrity, and the intention, you can attract very high level talent. So at the end of the day, I want to continue to attract amazing team members and let them be superstars in their role, and honestly kind of get out of their way. It's my job to kind of, I say, provide the riverbanks, right? The riverbanks, and let the river flow in between, and provide the vision and the leadership and the values and where we're going. And then let awesome rockstar team members kind of run with the day-to-day, and we course correct as needed. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Wow, that's fantastic. So let's talk about your focus in mobile home parks, right? I think I have some preconceived notions on why it's an interesting class, and it's a lucrative class. But I'm curious from your perspective, why mobile homes specifically?
Yeah, to be honest, Ed, I think because we picked it. Right. I think that's the biggest thing, is so many people are like, well, this guy is doing industrial and that guy is building storage facilities. And this guy's, oh my gosh, they're doing Airbnbs. Oh, my friend, they're having vans and they're renting them out on Outdoorsy. And that person's doing wholesaling. And what should you do? They're doing apartments. And oh, that guy's got RV parks. And the reality is there's so many ways to make money in real estate, but you have to pick one, I think, niche and become a master at it. And so the reality is, we just fell into mobile home parks, and once we adopted it, we continued, of course, to learn the nuances of it. But to any of your listeners that are kind of scatterbrained and all over the place, so many people are focused on trying to make $100,000 a year in maybe 10 different businesses. The average millionaire has 7 streams of income. But how about the millionaire that they actually made their first million with one business, and then they grew. And so instead of having $100,000 a year in 10 different businesses starting out, you can go make 5 million plus a year in one business, right? And you have that exponential out leveraged growth because you're single-minded, you're focused. And to your listeners, like when I started growing, we were in Illinois, then we went to Ohio, then we went to Minnesota, then we went to Texas. And there's kind of friction with that growing pain versus now we know where our market is. We know what we're buying. We have relationships with all the brokers, the lenders, the operators, the contractors. We know the city better and everything because we're so focused, and it allows for us to move quicker. And then we have the economies of scales. And so that's just my encouragement to any of your listeners is find something and go deep in it until you're fully financially free, till you have the operational, the team running, then you can branch out. But don't try to go in so many different directions from the beginning, because I did, and it hurt.
Yeah. Well, and I have I like to refer to it as entrepreneurial ADD, right? And I have a profound case of it. So, the shiny objects in my periphery, can get very enticing. And same thing. I was flipping houses. I was a principal with the local real estate investors association. I was doing multifamily, and I realized I was doing all of it at about 75% efficiency, which isn't good enough. And so not that long ago, I left the RIA, and I put the the flipping business to the side and focused on multifamily. And it's been just that focus, right, where I'm not dividing up my 10-hour day 3 ways, has made me exponentially more efficient in terms of helping to grow the business, as well as to work on the business. Right.
And just to touch base on that for a second, you said that 75% effectiveness and efficiency, and especially in this marketplace, it does not take a lot to go from good to great. Correct. Because so many people are just good out there. They're just getting by. They're okay operators. They're okay at raising capital. They're part-time on social media. They're part-time with whatever. To go that extra little bit, it doesn't take a lot. But from what I've seen, I think you would second this, the people that can go that extra bit have that extreme focus. And so, if you're going to be around, and for me at 23, when I talk to any of my investors or operators, I'm like, I'm going to be here for decades to come. Right. And most people are going to be in an industry they should be. It don't start unless you're going to be here for a long time. Right. But we know that if we're going to be around for such a long time, wouldn't you rather be great? Wouldn't you rather have a business that when they hear Relational Capital, when they hear your business, that like, wow, yeah, I met with those guys, I connected with them, it was great. Right. They went, over and above. Right. And that's the experience that I want. And we haven't always been that, because we learned and we grew quickly and we were so scattered. And now it's like, how do people relate with my company? What do our residents experience? How do our contractors like us? What about our lenders? What about our investors? What is the communication and different things? Because now we can focus on what that relationship looks like and make sure that it's a good one.
Yeah. And it's you sir are an old soul, because I don't know many 23-year-olds that think at that level. So that's impressive, man.
Thank you.
So when you talk about operations and your team, right? Looking at, so I come at this from a multifamily experience, where there are actually human beings and infrastructure and, all the things that I'm managing, where, you are managing basically the land, if I'm not mistaken, correct? And the utilities and the infrastructure. But the mobile homes themselves, are they owned by the people that live there, or do you own some of them and rent them out as well?
Yeah, great question. So every business owner, as you would probably second, and there's that natural evolution, right? And one thing that I've learned, and I think you would say this as well, and I would encourage your listeners to take this literally, is everybody listens to podcasts and you hear other people's horror stories and their mistakes, and they're saying, oh, I did X, Y, Z, and now I don't. And for some reason, as business owners and entrepreneurs, we're like, oh yeah, but we're different. Oh, we'll try it ourselves and we'll just do it. And so the horror stories that I heard in the business, I tried to avoid them, but when you're hunting and growing for deals and you're looking for things, you maybe will overlook some of those things that now I won't. And so I say that in the sense of, as we were growing, maybe we were focusing on a little bit smaller parks, maybe in a little bit smaller of towns, private utility infrastructures, maybe older infrastructure as a whole, a high amount of park-owned homes, or old park-owned homes, or old homes in general, and just different things. And that in itself is many caution tapes that other operators would say to stay away from. And so naturally, when we are looking at, acquiring all these value add parks, there's going to be, some vacant homes that we're purchasing that we're acquiring when we're buying the property, that we're going to have to renovate and then sell off to the residents. But our business model, I think everybody would second this as well in the industry, is you want to own the land, provide the infrastructure, provide the utilities, and have the residents own their home. For a lot of the parks that we have right now, we are in that process of, once a home is renovated, we'll be selling it off on a rent to own, or if there's, some other financing options that our residents can work with to cash us out, and then they're with a bank to finance the homes. But that is where we're moving towards, to where it's all tenant-owned homes, and, we're not having to deal with, these park-owned homes and different things, because the reality is, and this is the same thing with people's deal size, is, the smaller deals take the most amount of time versus spending all of your energy on a big deal that you're still raising equity, you're getting debt, you're doing inspection periods, you're doing all of these same things, but now the ROI is just as high.
Right.
So it's the same thing that we've experienced with, these older homes or different things. It's like, well, we probably could have avoided that and just gone to a bigger asset that maybe has a little bit more cushion rather than doing it on smaller ones, just because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And if you're going to do all of that work over a 2 to 3 to 4 year period before you refinance, it might as well be really worth it. And so,
yeah, well, if you're going to be a bear, might as well be a grizzly, right?
Right. That's right.
Yeah. So, Dylan, I got to tell you, one of the things that strikes me is that you are a person of action. And so, how did you get to be that way? Like, who instilled that in you? Or is that something that just naturally comes to you?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I mean, even though I'm younger, I've been full-time as an entrepreneur and in real estate for coming up in the past 6 years.
Yeah.
Right. And at the end of the day, your experience is based on how many reps that you do, not how long you've been around something.
Correct.
Right. Would you rather have 1 year of experience repeated 20 times, or 20 years of experience where every year you're learning something new and applying that? And so, for me, it's just been, what is that velocity that we can turn? If we have a mistake, how are we correcting on it? If we're learning, how are we fixing it? When we're hiring someone and then there's expectations, okay, well then how do we avoid that? And at the beginning, when we buy a property and there's an issue, okay, we add that now to our due diligence checklist, so the next time we acquire an asset, we're covering that. And so, it's an ongoing evolution, right? And there's a few different things. I made a post on LinkedIn the other week about why most people fail in real estate. I'm going to try to remember it all here, but a lot of it is because people they don't realize how long it's going to take and how hard it's going to be.
Right.
They don't have enough financial runway, and so when things get hard, they need the capital, and they either buy the wrong deal or they have to go back to their job. They're not surrounding themselves with the right people. They're not taking the right action. They're not investing in themselves. So again, it's all those main pillars to where, as I was growing and learning, it was constantly educating myself, constantly surrounding myself with people that are ahead of me. Again, I just messaged another operator here this morning. He's got almost 5,000 lots. He owns many different businesses. And again, because those relationships that I built. So when I had a very simple question, I just sent him a voice memo on text and he'll get back to me and we can discuss that. Right. And so again, it's just being around the right people and then focusing on the income producing activities, because so often, for me, I believe it's Mark Twain, and everybody's heard this quote of, if you have to eat the frog, the best time to do is first thing in the morning. And if you have to eat 2 frogs, eat the biggest one first. Right. And so for me, when I structure my day, I try to make sure that at the beginning, I'm focusing on the highest income producing activities, right? What is in front of me? And if I'm, again, like right now, it's almost 2:00 and we're doing a podcast. I did that intentionally because I know by 2:00, I get energized talking and connecting with people. But when it's 5, 6, 7 a.m., I need to have my headphones on and building out the business and doing deep work. Right. And so it's just constantly tweaking and finding what allows you to be the most disciplined. For me, I've really been leveraging these little note cards. And if you're watching the video, you can see every day I map out 3 of my biggest tasks and I track if I got them done. And that day was either a win or a loss if I got done those 3 big things. But I'm planning the night before, says, what is that next item that's going to move the business forward? Right. That's awesome. And just different things to where it's tweaking to where, I've done time audits, to where every 15 to 30 minutes, 7 days a week, I'm tracking where my time is going. Yep. And then what can be outsourced. And I know that as a leader, if someone can do something 80% as well as me, I should be outsourcing it. Right. And so for me, the CEO of Relational Capital, my 3 big things that I need to be focusing on are relational capital with investors and operators, like we're doing right now, social media and branding, and then third is leadership and elevation with the team. Those are the 3 big things that I can focus on. And so now as everything else comes up, if I'm dealing with banking, if I'm dealing with, our bookkeeper, or if I'm dealing with something for sales or acquisition, someone can do those things 80% as well as me. So I should be outsourcing that and bringing someone around me. And again, I'm talking over a 6-year period in the past 5 minutes, but it's taken time. And so
that compounds, right?
It does. And I think for me, like I've noticed a massive shift, or even over the past 2 months, Ed, is that I've gotten really intentional and reflective with my time, with my energy, and asking the right questions, right? You know, I have some other sticky notes around my computer here. And another one is, how can my business run without me? How can my business grow without me? And a lot of the times we have the right question, or we have the answers,
Right.
but we don't slow down enough to actually sit, think, and strategize. And so when I talk about being productive or being efficient with my time or different things, there's been a lot of go, 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 and
Right.
that gets you very far. But, you know, recently I've just been very intentional, because now I can have a team around me and different things to be a little bit more strategic with it. So it's an ongoing process. I'm excited for the next 5 years, 10 years. And, you know, I know it's going to be growing and improving and find what works best. And one thing too, and I'll just say, is it's so easy to compare, and it's so easy to compete with other people.
Yep.
You know, I was talking to another operator that was talking about all these apartment complexes they've owned, and they've acquired this, and I don't know how many thousands of units, but they only owned 3% of it. He only owned 3% of it.
Right.
For me, across my portfolio, I own 60% of all the 500 lots, and that's going to only go up to 70 and 80% across the board. And the reason I share that with people is because you can compare, and oh, well, that person bought another park, and that person's doing this, and that person's doing that. But in reality is, start with the end in mind. And so if you want to be financially free and you only need $10,000 a month to work, let's say 2 days a week, and you want to spend time with your kids and travel with your spouse and go and, you know, have these life experiences, why are you grinding your nose to the stone, working, you know, 7 days a week, trying to travel across the country and acquire all these parks? But if you don't know where you're going and what the end game is, then you're going to be moving unintentionally. And so for me, I've gotten a lot more clear with, what are the hours I want to work? When am I traveling with my wife? What is that looking like? So now when I'm building the business, I'm within those confinements. So if I want to work 3 days a week, you know, 6 hours on those days, when I look at growing and scaling, I know exactly what team members and people in place, so that when I'm off the rest of the week, or when I'm unavailable for my team, that those pillars are in place. And so again, it's just having that clarity, that focus, and that intention, because we have those answers. It's just we got to take the time and create the space to get clear on them.
So I'd like to unpack that, because you said some really important things there. So first thing is incrementalism, right? There's no such thing as get rich quick in real estate. And if there is, I'm pretty sure the person who's telling you about it is lying to you, right? Yep. This is hard work. It is something that is very straightforward, right? But it's difficult because you're dealing with a lot of moving parts operationally. In my world, I'm also dealing with human beings, right? And the place where they live, and you are too. And so the thing is that yes, you can take big swings, and of course, like we were talking about earlier, if you're going to be a bear, might as well be a grizzly, right? Go for the big stuff, because it's the same exact motion to buy a 150 unit property as it is a 10 unit property. It's the exact same process. It might be an extra comma and a couple extra zeros, but that's about it. And so but the thing that you said that was really interesting was, incrementalism and growth, right? So you and I do the exact same thing. I have my big 3 in the morning that I set up actually right around 5 o'clock of, okay, here's where we are, and this is the playing field, and I'm going to move 1% better this way. And to do that, I've got to do, so my 3 things are, I work with investors, I work with building owners and brokers, and then I work on the business in terms of helping to grow my team, right? So very similar philosophies. And so I don't leave the office until I get those 3 things done. And if it takes me 4 hours, then hey, I've got some free time to go do something else. If it takes me 8 hours, well, that's okay too. If it takes me 12, it is what it is, right? We got to get those 3 things done.
And if I could, and I hope I'm not going to throw you too much off track here, okay, but I'll just say this is, that's great going into the day, but for me, I've failed at that a lot of time, and I want to give
I fail at every day. I fail at all the time.
I want to give grace to the listeners that what is the ROI on your time, right? And for me, Relational Capital is the name of my company, and I'm very much about relationships. And so for me, if I know that I told my wife that I'm going to make dinner tonight, and it's 5:50 and I haven't planned my day. I was on Facebook too long or I got distracted,
Right.
and I need to know that I need to go down and make dinner because that was a commitment I made. There's been countless times that I have not held up on that commitment because that ROI that I thought on work was higher and it wasn't.
No.
And so for me, it's having the grace to say, you know what, I failed today. It was a loss, as I say, either win or loss if I did my three things. But that ROI is going to be better because I'm focused on that relationship with my wife or going to my family or with friends or wherever that commitment is. But then I also create the space and reflect and say, why did I fail? Where did I miss my time? Did I not set expectations on that phone call that I got? And it should have been 20 minutes, but I just rambled on and it was 40. Was I on Facebook too long? Did I take too long of a lunch break? And then you're reflecting and say, why did I not hit my three? But realizing that if you do lose that day, as I say, it's okay, and then you get the next day to reflect and counter back to it.
Right on. That's awesome. And living up to your commitments, especially to your beloved wife, is an excellent policy. I can assure you, having been married for 27 years.
Nice.
Make sure that when you say you're going to do something, you make sure you do it.
And I've only learned by not being a man of my word, and not upholding
me too.
that. You learn by
Yeah. I've got the scars on my back to show you. I had to be trained.
Right.
But it's interesting how important it is to set up your day. I mean, it's the old Mike Tyson quote, right? Everybody's got a plan till they get hit. And, my days, and I'm sure your days feel that way, is that, I keep a low profile in the morning, and I eat the frog, as you were to use your analogy. And then, my afternoons are for things that are fun, right? So I look forward to them, like this, like doing a podcast, or, creating a webinar, or, doing something creative or informative, or, something to feed my brain. And it makes me a lot more efficient. So, my big three, I'm trying really hard to get them done by lunchtime. Right.
Yeah, that's great. And if I can drop another nugget here, Ed, for your listeners,
keep it coming.
I'm talking a lot about mindset, structure, discipline, focus, because that's what it is. And again, whether if you are working a W-2, if you're self-employed, whatever asset class you're in real estate, those foundations of your mindset, your discipline, your focus, everything needs to be in place. I was talking with one of my buddies the other day, and he's a solo operator and investor, and he's like, so what should my first hire be? How should I be growing? And for me, even just recently, I kind of broke down what my time is worth, where I'm at now, where I want to be. And I had a simple example for everybody that I can share, that if someone wants to make $10,000 a month in passive income, cash flow, if we break that down, that's $120,000 a year. That comes down to $2,500 a week. And for me, if I only want to work 4 days a week, that's $625 a day. And if I want to work 6 hours on those 4 days, that's $104 an hour.
Right.
Talk about that perspective shift. My time, if I want to get to that $10,000 a month, 4 days a week, 6 hours on those days, my time is worth $104 an hour. And so now anything that is not up to that $104 an hour needs to be outsourced. And so when we're talking about administrative stuff, bookkeepers, different things that when people are trying to grow and scale, because everybody asks that question, everybody's scared to grow and scale. They're like, oh, well, I can't afford that. Well, you're not paying $50,000 a year, right? You're paying, let's say, $4,000 a month, $1,000 a week, $200 some a day. And so, or even if you can bring someone on part-time and say, okay, if you're hiring someone at, $20 an hour and they're working 10 hours a week, can you afford $200 a week? I don't care if you're kicking or screaming or using whatever resource you can, you could probably find that at $200 a week. Because now if that person that you're paying $20 an hour, but your time's worth $100, that should be freeing you up to focus on the big things. And so again, it's just stacking experiences and levels onto it to where as you're growing, you need to be focusing on the highest and best of your time, because that's when you have a breakthrough.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's operational leverage, right? I mean, the fact is that, and I don't look for people who are 80% as good as I am. I look for people who are better than I am, right?
Yep.
And so, if you've listened to the show, out there, you've heard me say this many times. If I walk into a room with my team members, or I hop on a Zoom call with my team members, and I'm the smartest person on that call, we're all in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And it's, I
Right.
don't mean that to be self-deprecating. I mean, we are in trouble because I don't know everything. And I need, when like one of the things you had said was that, you do your social media. And I do all the writing, right? Because it's me and I'm the face of my company. But I asked somebody else that actually executes on the social media plan.
Yep.
And because A, he's better at it than I am, and B, he's consistent, and C, he's way more creative than I'll ever be. Right. So
Exactly.
I let my friend Jazz do his thing, and he's great. And consistency is probably the biggest challenge for, especially with entrepreneurs. You talk about your big three and your highest and best use. You still get pulled into other things because you're the boss, right? And they want to
Yep.
know, they want to know either how to do it or how to do it your way. And the key is to basically educate them and say, this is how I do it, but if you have a better way, let's talk about it, and we'll do it your way going forward. It
Exactly.
doesn't have to be my way. It just has to be the best way, right?
Yep.
So the other things that I wanted to really talk about was, how you approach the business itself, and in terms of goals and goal setting. You seem to be pretty clear on your day to day. You seem to be pretty clear on how you want to grow your business. I'm curious about how you gain clarity about what that end state you were talking about earlier. What's the end in mind? How have you gotten clear on what that first hill, whatever that hill is for you, to take? How did you get clear on that, and what was the process you went through?
Yeah. Well, just to drop a resource, my framework on a vision, mindset, time, listening to a lot of Rob Dyrdek, and people
Okay.
think of him as ridiculousness and different things, but
Yeah.
look him up on YouTube. He has some of the most, I think for me, game-changing things on goals and perspectives. And so secondly, next resource is Alex Hormozi. Listening to a lot of his stuff. I know he's been blowing up recently.
Yes.
And he's been really good. And he says something that, until you're making $100,000 a year or even $1 million a year, however he says it, every extra amount of capital that you have needs to be invested into yourself on developing skills.
Right.
Right. And so everybody's like, oh, I got 20 grand. I should invest. Should I do it in Bitcoin? Should I do it in the S&P? Should I go and do this and that? It's like, no, invest in yourself. What is that next skill? Do you need to hire a mentor? Do you need to hire a consultant or something? And for me, that's one I have spent countless amounts of capital on investing myself, whether if it is one-on-one mentorship, courses, if it's joining other masterminds and programs. And again, these are the same things that I mentioned previously. Is you hear everybody talk about the same thing and what was their key to success, but then you're like, oh, well, I can do it on my own. I can just read books. I can do different things. And so what has gotten me clarity is just every time there's always someone else in my corner, right? I have people for relationships. I have people for my spirituality. I have people for health and fitness. I have people for business. I have every different thing. And so what's gotten a lot of clarity for me, I am working with a business coach right now. I'll drop a nugget. Their company is Unleashed CEO. Maybe if you can listen to my words, if I say them right, you can look it up, but Unleashed CEO. And, I've been working with them for the past 6 months and coming in as a fractional integrator to bring clarity, bring structure to my team. They're on our weekly team meetings. We do our L10s every week. We have the vision set, different
What's an
things.
L10?
So a level 10 meeting is a framework from the book Traction and EOS to where, really having clear expectations with your team. What are we getting on? What are we discussing? What is everybody's responsibilities and different things? And for me, I tried that before and, we've gone through the books and different things, but having a third party individual on those meetings, running it and different things has been really helpful. And so I think that's been probably one of my biggest breakthroughs is a coach or a mentor by my side, getting clarity. But again, it's just asking those simple questions. Like when there is friction in your life, ask yourself why. Like when you were frustrated because you missed a commitment for your kids or showed up late to date night, or you couldn't pay a bill, or, something broke on your car and you couldn't fix it immediately, but it was 6 months down the road that you had to fix it because you finally had the money. When there's friction and issues in your life, ask yourself that question. Recently my wife and I spent 2 weeks in Hawaii, and, my team, bless their souls, they were like, get out, go have fun, like live life, like all these different things. But for me, I was kind of still caught in the business mentally and physically.
Yep.
And so that was friction. And I asked myself, like, what do I want? Like, how do I want to experience life financially, relationally, spiritually, health-wise, different things? And again, it's not rocket science, but it's just creating the time and the space to ask those specific questions,
Right.
and then mapping it out. When do I want to wake up? When do I want to have lunch? When do I want to go out and spend time with my family and kids and friends? How often do I want to go and have activities and hobbies and different things? And
Right.
again, it's just getting clarity, and then you can put the team around you. And again, I've had very ambitious goals, and we're doing hundreds of thousands a month, and wholesaling, and we're buying assets, and we're doing this and that and everything. But again, that was when I was struggling with comparison. And
Right.
well, these guys are doing it, why shouldn't I? I'm a smart guy. I understand business. I can lead a team. I should be doing that too. But then
Not a
again,
risk.
if I'm sitting on a beach in Hawaii, I don't need that hundreds of thousands of dollars a month
Right.
and different things. But that's my goal.
Find enough, right?
Right. And so it's really just getting clear on what you want to create, and then working backwards from there.
I love that. Absolutely. And, there's something to be said for designing your life, right? And making sure that you are on track to kind of get to that point. So let me ask you, you touched on this a little bit, and I'm Dylan, I've really enjoyed this conversation. So when you're not talking about mobile home parks and relational capital and building your skill set and your relationship network, what do you like to do for fun?
Anything and everything outside. I love snowmobiling and getting in the mountains. I love snowboarding. I like to surf. I like to fish, dirt bikes, mountain bikes. Anything outdoors is really fun to me. I love health and fitness. And I was talking to my grandma. We FaceTime every week, and she's like, if I would have known how old I was going to get, I would have taken much better care of my body. And I'm like, oh,
Right.
okay. Like, that's good to know.
Noted.
And, so I love things with health and fitness, and, just getting out and living life,
Awesome.
when my wife and I go to the beach, road trips, different things.
Awesome. So, Dylan, how can people learn about you or get in touch with you if they want to learn more about relational capital and what you're doing?
Yeah, relationalcapital.com. You can find me on social media anywhere under Dylan Stewart or Relational Capital.
All right. Dylan Stewart, thank you so much for your time today. Congratulations on all your success, and I can't wait to see what happens next.
Thanks, Ed. I appreciate you.
All right. Same. Thanks.